If you woke up with the ability to walk through walls, it would probably take a few weeks to notice. Shower thoughts. Isn't it funny that being born is the luckiest thing to ever happen to you? Yet, we all have done it. In 100 years from now, Twitter is gonna be full of a bunch of dead people. All we do is sleep and work, yet we're always tired and have no money. Isn't it funny how humans cut down birdhouses only to build more birdhouses? Shower thoughts. The mailman has never been inside your house, so as far as your dog knows, the barking's working. If humans could fly, we'd probably still walk because it's easier to carry groceries. Why is it when you transport something by car, it's called shipment, but when you transport something by boat, it's called cargo? Ice cubes float around in pools of their own blood. Did you know death would be way scarier if it only happened to some people and not others? Shower thoughts. Isn't it funny that alien invasion movies rarely have humans as the ones invading? The first person to hear an echo probably thought the world was talking back. Humans are probably the only animal that use food as decoration instead of just eating it. Is trying to get all the groceries into the house in one load lazy or just super ambitious? Anytime now, ghosts are gonna learn how to manipulate our smartphones. Technically, you can't have an odd number of spots on a mirror. You will never see your actual face. Be honest. Did you know if you were invisible, you could have a perfectly normal relationship with a blind person? Shower thoughts. Being able to tolerate the sound of your own voice on video is probably the highest form of self-acceptance. Thermometers are just speedometers for atoms. If you think about it, the average car in space is nicer than the average car on Earth. An inheritance is just your relatives dropping loot when they die. If a morgue worker dies, he still has to go into work one more time. Be honest. Did you know every single odd number has the letter E in it? Shower thoughts. Isn't it funny that we automatically assume eggs in recipes mean chicken eggs? Somewhere there's a tree growing wood for the coffin you'll eventually lie in. Why doesn't Netflix just include ratings from Rotten Tomatoes to save us all a web search? A group chat named after you is the one that you're least likely to be in. If Pokemon were real, fire types would be illegal to own in California. You only realize you've fallen asleep once you wake up. Be honest. Did you know Baby Yoda's first word came after his second word? Shower thoughts. The person who inhaled helium must have been so relieved when the effects wore off. Why does everyone apply deodorant daily if some deodorants last 48 hours? If you think about it, being with people who don't listen is lonelier than being alone. The clip of Will Smith probably has more views than the film he won an Oscar for. Mosquitoes are really brave, considering they only have one hit point. Be honest. Did you know the older you are when you get a tattoo, the less return you get on the investment? Shower thoughts. With the modern materials, we could all have unbreakable dishes and never have to buy another plate or glass. Someone knew what burning bread smelled like before bread was even invented. What if the reason we don't remember the first 2 years of life is because we're so traumatized by birth, so we just blacked out? Be honest. Aren't we all super lucky that getting your haircut doesn't hurt? Shower thoughts. Isn't it funny that those who believe in a flat earth don't tell us what the underside looks like? Most boats travel faster on the trailer than they ever will on water. What if surgery replaces an injury that is too hard for your body to heal with an injury that is easier for your body to heal? Despite practicing every single day, falling asleep does not get easier. Isn't it funny how in video games, old items are seen as bad, but ancient items are usually good? How come TV episodes usually have names, but TV seasons never do? It must be insanely time-consuming to design fonts in Japanese. If dogs sweated like humans, they probably would not be popular pets. Imagine what it would look like if all Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, and Signal was visible to the naked eye. Why is getting a 3 out of 5 way better than getting a 6 out of 10? It's convenient that water can't get cold enough to injure us the way that really hot water does. Be honest. Did you know spilling coffee on your lap is more effective at waking you up than actually drinking coffee? If you think about it, bad spellers probably have the most secure passwords. At what time does grave robbing turn into archaeology? What if sleeping is just the body's way of checking you still work by turning you off and on again? Sleeping for longer than usual and still waking up tired is the biggest scam in human history. Your money isn't yours, it's just your turn with it. What if cats purposely break stuff so when you buy new ones, they get to play with the box? Life is just a bunch of would you rathers that you actually have to answer. Be honest. Even though all our fingers are different lengths, they all line up when we curl them in. There are potentially hundreds of pictures of you out there that you will never see. Surgery is basically just stabbing someone to life. If you've read the dictionary, you've technically read all books, just in a different order. Heat, pressure, and time are the 3 things to make a diamond, but are also the things needed to make a waffle. Why does no one ever hear a car alarm and think it's being broken into? Arguing with dumb people actually makes you smarter, because you have to explain it to them in a way that a dumb person can understand. Why do game devs try to make their games as realistic as possible? If people play them to escape reality, we never truly know what the time is. We just take everyone's word for it. If you think about it, your car key has probably traveled more than your car. Why is the average number of times people die just over 1? If someone says they're cooler than than you, that makes you hotter than them. Now thinking about it, does anyone actually remember the last few seconds before they go to sleep? Fishes probably don't know that they're wet. Only 1 in 500 people can subscribe to timelezzz with their nose. Artificial intelligence would probably freak us out less if it talked in a robot voice instead of impersonating a human. Why is a man walking around with 1 crowbar more suspicious than a man walking around with 3 crowbars? The sinking of the Titanic must have been a miracle to the lobsters inside. In the event of an apocalypse, most people would probably spend the first 20 minutes wondering why the internet went out. Why did society just collectively forget about the selfie stick? Dogs probably eat shoes because they see humans wear them when they leave the house. Being too lazy to go out for junk food is a great example of 2 negatives making a positive. Isn't it crazy that one of your ancestors has been alive during every single historical event you've ever heard of? There's no reason that fish should be afraid of heights, but they are. Laughing out loud is probably the most told lie in history. You know you're officially an adult when it's no longer hard to fall asleep on Christmas Eve. How come whenever an allergy is mentioned in a movie, the person usually gets killed or poisoned with it? Our fingers perfectly fitting in our nostrils must be an evolutionary prank. How come warm and cold milk taste good, but room temperature milk tastes awful? When you eat a lollipop, you are technically just drinking sweetened saliva. When did we just all decide that eggs are a breakfast food? Every machine can be a smoke machine if you operate it wrong. There's a certain point where weighted blankets go from relieving anxiety to giving anxiety. Why do deaf people lose their right to speak when they're handcuffed? Teeth are the only problem that, if you ignore them, they go away. The more the population grows, the more chance that someone will spontaneously combust. Nothing begins with an N and ends with a G. Prove me wrong. We really live on a planet that every so often a mountain explodes, and we're just supposed to be okay with that? Do not touch would be a life-ending thing to read in Braille. If you get out of the shower clean, why does your towel get dirty? The fact that we are still rickrolling people just proves that we ourselves are never gonna give it up. Pirates with eye patches probably sucked at sword fighting. What if birthdays are just participation awards for life? Nothing strikes more fears when you hear your alarm as someone else's ringtone. Why do actors even get paid if they only pretend to work? Scissors only come together for one reason: to divide. If you're born deaf, what language do you think in? The only thing that water bottle companies produce is plastic. Animals probably think that fireworks are just a freak part of nature. Did you know Superman's X-ray vision probably put his friends and coworkers at an elevated risk of cancer? Shower thoughts. How come, of all the advancements in modern medicine, a bag of peas is still a legitimate treatment doctors recommend? Given how many pitches they see, you'd think catchers would have the highest batting averages. Because of a silly joke, everyone now knows what the powerhouse of the cell is. Isn't it funny how future archaeologists will probably have a love-hate relationship with landfills? When I die, someone is gonna have to cancel all my subscriptions. Did you know lamps in video games use real electricity? Shower thoughts. Somebody at Google was really like, yeah, let's just drive down every road in the whole world. Whoever created the tradition of not seeing the bride in the wedding dress beforehand single-handedly saved countless husbands from hours of dress shopping and will forever be a hero to all men. It would be cool if, after you died, you got to see the top 5 times you almost died. Not many people have actually searched for a needle in a haystack. What was the first person milking a cow trying to do? Isn't it weird that if you're over 30, you've been alive before every dog in the world? We pay more attention to the ads we can skip than the ads we are forced to watch. National anthems can just be considered country music. If a pregnant woman goes swimming, does that make her a human submarine? Bullets only do their job after they're fired.